Hi everyone, welcome back to the 21 and Sensory podcast with me, Emily. I'm super excited for today's episode as I have special guest Abigail Balfe. Abigail is a Brighton-based writer, illustrator, and Emmy Award-winning creative producer. Abigail is an author and has just had her first book published, and it's called A Different Sort of Normal, and it documents how Abigail didn't realise she was autistic until she was an adult. So I reached out to her to ask if she might like to come on my podcast to chat a little bit more, just about her life and her book, obviously. And here she is. So Abigail, would you like to say hello?
Hello. Hello to Emily and hello to the other people who are listening to the podcast.
So I like to start with the whole kind of autism diagnosis thing. It would be really interesting to discuss like the process and the kind of journey behind your diagnosis, and if you have any other diagnoses you want to chat about, feel free. So, yeah, if you'd like to just kind of start your story of your diagnosis.
Sure. At various points throughout my life, there have been the odd suggestions from people that I might be autistic. But I think people were kind of saying it to me like a joke, and I thought they were saying it like an insult because I had no idea what autism was. For example, when I was a teenager and I did something or said something weird, and my brother said to my mum, by the way, Mum, Abby's autistic. And she said, oh, no, she's not. Stop being silly. She's just got the creative gene. She's just a bit different. And then I remember once being in a party and I don't know, I think I said something strange, and a girl who works in mental health said to me, Abby, are you autistic? And I took that as an insult again because I had no idea what autism was, and I just thought she was being rude to me. And I ended up doing stand-up comedy, I sort of brought it into my routine as like when people meet me for the first time, one of the first questions they ask me is, are you autistic? Because you're taught in stand-up comedy to bring attention to the things that people notice about you when they first meet you. So like my comedy teacher at the time was saying, well, you wear glasses, so bring up your glasses and then say something funny about that, and then think of some other things that people think about you. And then the autism thing was something that came up, but I had no idea that I was autistic. So I kind of dismissed all of the suggestions of being autistic because I didn't know anything about being autistic, and all I knew was what I'd seen in media or books that had been about like a male young boy who likes trains and timetables and lists, and that's what I thought autism was, and that's what most people thought autism was at the time. But then there were a couple of friends who I was really close to at college who were very similar to me, and we got on really well, and we were very creative and I suppose weird, but weird is only weird if you compare it to some, like, who decides what weird is? We don't need to go into that now either. And I noticed similarities between us, and both of these girls got diagnosed as autistic when they were in their late 20s, early 30s. And I thought, maybe this is something I should look into, actually. So I started doing some research online and looking at YouTube videos and Instagram. And as a lot of autistic women, I think, have done, I found that checklist by Samantha Kraft, the unofficial checklist of traits of autism in girls. And I fit almost all of them. And I thought, okay, this is definitely something. And then autism became my new special interest. And then I read loads of books and just kept absorbing all of the information about it. And I thought, yeah, this is it. I am autistic. And that explains so much of my life to me. And I went to the doctor to talk about it with a big list of why I think I didn't manage to get to the end of the list because it was so long. And they said, why don't you just email me the list? And but she'd already decided, yes, we will refer you. And so I was, the local commissioning group had to approve funding for the NHS referral. So I had a few weeks wait for that. And they went through the standard questions, questions out of 50, which are outdated still. And but I scored high in the autism side of things, and they agreed to put me on the waiting list for an NHS assessment. So yeah, during that time, I was still researching and really just wanting this diagnosis to happen. And I was also getting quite scared that what if I didn't get diagnosed as autistic? Then what's wrong with me? And I'm doing those hand things, quote marks, by the way, around the words wrong. And I started writing a blog about being autistic, and I started the line saying, I'm writing this from the past, and because when you're reading this, I will have been diagnosed as autistic. And then I'd written the blog nearly all, like, several months before I got the diagnosis, and then once it happened, I thought, now I can publish it, and it's true. And I knew it would be, because I was so certain that autism was the answer. And but yeah, going back to the diagnosis process, it took quite a long time before I heard back. And then my mum had to do a 3-hour interview on the phone about my life. And because she's also now on the waiting list for an autism assessment, aged 67, that interview took it out of her. She had to lie down in a quiet room, dark, for a few hours afterwards. And she had to fill in some forms, and then I had to fill in lots of forms. And finally, I had the ADOS assessment, which is something that, again, is quite outdated, because they ask you to do things that are mostly designed for children and not people who are used to being in the world and masking, like many girls, trans, non-binary people are. And so like one of the things they asked me to do was create a story out of this bag of objects. And then they put the objects on the table, and there was like a little plastic car, and then there was a rubber, and then there was a cocktail stick with an umbrella thing on it. So I told a story about how my dad took a tub of ice cream back to the supermarket after it had melted, and I used the little car to show him driving to the supermarket, and then him having an argument with the person in the supermarket saying, look, my ice cream is melted and it's faulty, and I want an exchange. So they gave him an exchange, and he took his ice cream home again and thinking, okay, they'll give it a second go. But lo and behold, again, the ice cream melted. And he was not pleased. So he took his ice cream back to Asda again and said, look, I've had it up to here with this ice cream. There's obviously something wrong with it. I want my money back. It's melted again. So the person looked at him, a bit of confusion, and said, okay, here, you can have your money back. And my dad went home. And he was telling me the story in the pub, and he was really, really annoyed. And he just couldn't understand what had happened. I said, Dad, where had you been storing your ice cream? And he said, in the cupboard. And with absolutely no irony. And I had to kind of explain, ice. The word ice is in the word of ice cream. It's a bit of a hint. Anyway, the moral of this story is that I told that story, and because it's a story I've told many times, I was able to tell it quite well, And then afterwards I said to the woman, if you wonder why I was able to tell that story quite so well, it's because it's a real story that happened in my life. And then in the thing they wrote up afterwards, they were saying, well, the story she told wasn't really a story because it was something that happened in her life. And I think it's quite funny to think of now because, like, there are lots of autistic authors who write fiction, and like there are lots of us who are really creative and great at writing stories, and I feel like, I don't know, if I'd have made something up, then I probably wouldn't have, I don't know, then I wouldn't have seemed autistic enough. And like the way that the exams are arranged are, based on outdated beliefs and need to change.
I mean, it's ridiculous that you had to do an activity like that. Like you were in your 30s, I'm right, when you had your assessment. That's ridiculous. Why are you being, it should just be a kind of talking assessment sort of thing once you're past, the children's sort of age of, like I don't understand. That is such an outdated method of assessing someone.
It was so strange. And they also showed me this picture. It was like a sort of Where's Wally type picture. And they were saying, oh, this is a picture of a holiday. And what do you think these people are doing on the holiday and stuff? And like, and then at the beginning of the thing, she started the thing by saying, I've just been on holiday. And I thought, well, you're obviously asking me that so that you'll see if I ask, oh, have you been anywhere nice? Well, I'm not going to rise to it. And but I don't know. Anyway, that assessment happened. They did also ask questions about life and feelings, and they asked me to describe emotions and how emotions feel and what, like, I know a lot of autistic people can find it hard to identify their own emotions, and there's a word for that which I can't pronounce.
It's like, alexithymia, isn't it?
That sounds about right.
Yeah, I think it's like where you can't describe your emotions or your feelings. Yeah.
Yes. And I think I'm better at describing like the physical sensations of emotions rather than what I am. Like sometimes, like I've got a friend who, instead of asking me, how are you feeling? She'll say, I wonder how you're feeling now. Maybe tomorrow you could send me a message and let me know. And then the next day I'll write a message saying, this is how I was feeling yesterday.
Excellent.
The time to reflect is sometimes necessary because it's not, I don't always know in the moment. So that happened. And then a few weeks later, I was called in for the final assessment with a psychiatrist. And as I walked in, the woman said to me, well, I can already tell you're somewhere on the spectrum, but we just need to work out where. Then she asked lots more questions, and it felt more relaxed and a better conversation than the other one, which felt like a school teacher telling me to do things.
Yeah. And were you told after the first one that you might be autistic, or did you have to wait till the second appointment?
No, they didn't give any indication on that first one.
Oh my God, so you had to wait to even know.
There's lots of waiting, or loads of waiting. But in that final assessment, at the end, she said Asperger's, which I thought Asperger's had been phased out by that time, but apparently not in that area of London anyway. But now I just say autistic because, we all know that, well, all of the Asperger's connotations.
It's more sort of widely understood, isn't it, than
Yeah.
Asperger's. Like when I was diagnosed, I was told that they don't like use that word anymore. But it's interesting.
When were you diagnosed?
So I think it was 2019. Yeah. But I didn't have any like activities or anything to do in mine. Mine was just a talking assessment.
Oh,
So
really?
it's really interesting to compare.
Yeah. Did you have did you have more than one assessment, like real in person?
No, so I had like a questionnaire obviously to do beforehand, and then they were like, yeah, you can go on the waiting list. And then I took my mum to my appointment, and it was like 4 hours, and there was a segment where they just talked to her about like my life, so kind of what your mum did on the phone, but the rest of it was like questions at me, and I was told on the day if they thought I was autistic. So it's interesting that yours was so different.
Yeah, I think I was gonna say it happens differently in different parts of the country, but I was in London at the time. But I suppose different parts of London is strange. But it feels like there should be some sort of wide, like, you know, I don't know.
You'd think it would be similar. How long did you like have to wait on the waiting list? Was that a long wait?
It was 1 year and 8 months, I think, or 1 year, 1.5 years, or yeah. But I know the wait that felt really long. But I know the wait is a lot longer now, and my mum's been on the waiting list for about 2.5 years.
Really?
Yeah, and I know friends. I've got a friend who's been on the waiting list for about 2.5 years as well, and that's in 2 different areas of the country.
I love that your mum is on a waiting list as well.
Yeah,
I think
too.
that's really amazing, and bless her for recounting all your childhood stuff and it completely wiping her out.
Yeah, and also, I suppose like she couldn't remember a lot of things as well, and like things that she would think were normal for a childhood and a family, actually were neurodivergent things, and she just thought, well, we're all like this, so. Yeah, and like she wanted me to have an easier childhood than she did, and she wanted me to, because she'd been told by her mum, like it's important to make friends, and you don't want to be lonely, and you should have more friends, and so she was encouraging me to be social and to have parties, and she arranged this Punch and Judy party, which I mentioned in my book. Even though it was hard for her, and it was hard for me, and even my brother, who was only a few months old at the time, told me the other day he remembers very distinctly being in this party and looking around thinking, why is everyone laughing, and why is everyone enjoying this? And even like him as a baby knew that it wasn't something that we were different as children. And I think he hasn't been diagnosed as autistic, but we've had discussions about it, and we think he's probably ADHD and potentially some autism. It's funny because there's so much crossover with the experiences, and and I'm also on a waiting list for an ADHD assessment now.
Are you? Okay, that's interesting. It's really interesting how through you, the rest of your family have been able to sort of see it within themselves as well. Like it's interesting that you can almost trace it back through your family as well.
Yeah, and it does run in families, and I'm pretty sure my nan was autistic as well, and she there's this common misconception about autistic people not wanting friends or like not being particularly social. But my nan was always encouraging my mum to have friends, and my nan, she kind of hyper focused and had a special interest in friendships and friends, and she would write lists of her friends, and she'd like write big things of what happened each time she saw her friends, and how many Christmas cards she got, and who she was going to see, and what this person was doing and what they'd done for her and stuff. And my mum was totally the opposite of that. And I suppose I'm kind of in the middle, and I enjoy friendships a lot, but I also enjoy being on my own.
So I was going to ask you about like the whole kind of idea of masking and what your sort of experience of it is like. So have you, now that you know you're autistic, is it something that you notice you're doing or knew that you were doing before? I find it interesting to know what people think.
Yeah, well, I feel like masking is something I'm still kind of learning about what I do that is masking, because I've been doing things, being me for so many years, not knowing I was autistic. And I suppose only now I'm thinking, that is masking. And I remember when I started my master's degree in children's book illustration, which was maybe 3 or 4 years ago. And I remember starting, like, the first 2 weeks, I felt like, I'm a fun, friendly person, and I'm going to make friends with everyone. And I was really high energy and just talking to people all the time and telling funny jokes. And I was thinking, I'm a person. I'm doing social things and I'm enjoying it. And this is great. And then as the weeks went on, I thought, I can't keep this up anymore. And it's like I've been sort of acting in some comedy role, and now I've lost my energy and I can't even talk in most of the lessons. And I suppose it's like that with, I suppose, sometimes going to social events, and I can start off but sometimes it doesn't feel like masking. Sometimes it feels like having fun. And sometimes, like, I don't know where. I think there's a I've only just been recently realizing that I've probably got ADHD as well, and this crossover between the two, which are which have a lot of similarities. I feel like that has a part to play in masking. I suppose. Well, I'm not sure how to say it. Try to work.
I know
out
what you mean, though.
words.
That there's you almost, if there's a crossover between autism and ADHD, you don't know which is which. And
yes,
I guess that's quite hard in itself.
It's because I feel like the ADHD side of me wants to have fun and go out and be spontaneous and make jokes, and go on stage and tell funny stories, and then have a fun time. But then there's the autism side, which I want to stay in my room and not have to expend any energy talking to anyone. And I know there's a lot of crossover with the sensory stuff with both autism and ADHD. By the way, I'm not an expert on any of this, so people might not. I mean, this is stuff that I've been learning as I go along, and obviously, I can only speak from my experience and from what I've read and heard from people I know. But there does seem to be this push and pull between autism and ADHD, and balance can sometimes be hard to achieve. And it's only something I've noticed recently from working from home since COVID, because when I used to work in an office every day, I'd be totally exhausted and sensory overload every day. I could start the day sometimes being quite high energy and have some funny conversations, but by the end of the day, I'd lose the power to speak. And I just go home exhausted, and it would be quite easy to sleep. But since working from home, although it's easier to concentrate in some ways with not having all of the office sounds and people walking around and impromptu meetings and like weird temperatures and having to get onto the public transport to get there, and even having sensory overload on the way to work, which obviously affects the rest of the day. But from home, I can control my environment, which is really helpful. But then also, I found myself kind of trying to control it too much. Like, I haven't got the right level of silence and stimulation. Like, I need... So then I put music on. I think, is it the right sound? I'm not sure. Oh, this bit of the room looks a bit untidy. I need to make this look clearer. And I sort of not having the back and forth conversations and like funny bits of having people around. Yeah, which I also noticed because I moved to Brighton after I split up with my long-term partner who I was living with, and went from that to living alone and working from home. So it's quite a big difference. And I'm rambling again. What was the question?
So we were talking about masking, but it was interesting that you went into like workplace stuff, because it's really interesting to hear from someone who also like had to work in an open plan office and then switched to remote working, because that's exactly what I've had to do as well.
Yeah, I remember we were talking about this.
Yeah, the way you describe the open plan office is exactly it. It's just too much. But I get what you mean about remote working, is that you kind of have this need to control your environment, and if something's a bit untidy, it's like, oh, I need to deal with that because it'll take up that mind space kind of thing. I don't know if that's what you kind of meant.
Yeah, like objects and everything, just it adds to the overload. And yeah, and I find like now that I'm working from home, I need to be so strict with myself. Like, I write lists, typical autistic stereotype, but and it's Virgo season at the moment, although it might not be when this goes out. So, but
I mean, October, is that still?
No. But
it is at the time of recording.
yes. So I've been writing lists. So I need to have something to cross off because I need to feel I've achieved something. So on my list, like the first thing I've got on my list, I haven't got wake up. Actually, I should put that one on because that might help. But I have got the first drink I will have, which will be herb water with lemon in it. Then I have a slash that says, nice. Prepare coffee. Then I have another one, do some stretching, and then shower, and then eat a sandwich with this in it, and then do this bit of work, and then do this bit of work. And yeah, I feel like I really need to have as many lists that I can cross off as possible at the moment.
Do you find that like routine and that's like you need that structure to feel, kind of happy and like you're achieving things? I totally get that like having that routine gives you that, like, I don't know, just that kind of safety.
Yeah, even when I've not been working from home, I've needed routine, and I've always had a very strict morning routine of how I have to do things and what time I have to do them. And I remember once when it was my birthday and my girlfriend had planned something that was a surprise, and she needed me to not do my morning routine. And I was like, I can't do this thing now. I have to do this first. And she said, no, but you have to open this envelope now because otherwise it's going to affect this bit of the surprise. And And then I think it took quite some persuading for me to not have my shower when I was supposed to, and then not make a certain drink when I was going to. And then she said, "Yeah, I don't think we'll do this next year."
I'm just the same with like surprises. It just throws you off, doesn't it? And like you say, it will like potentially ruin your routine or your day's like out of sync or something. So at least they appreciated that they weren't going to do that again.
Yeah, but then I felt, it was a really nice surprise there, and we had a really nice day. But so I suppose sometimes, balance and compromise is good, and I don't want to be too rigid all the time in everything, because sometimes it can be fun to do spontaneous things. And
that is very true. Indeed. So why don't we chat about your work as a kind of creative producer, which you've kind of mentioned that you're kind of working from home, but also as an author and illustrator. Like, I am utterly fascinated by the fact that you wrote a book, which is a huge thing to do, but you also illustrated that book. Those are two separate jobs that you did at the same time. Like, that's insane. Like, can you talk me through them? Like, did you write the book first? Like, how does it work?
What happened was, because I was on my MA in children's book illustration, and I got my diagnosis while I was on the course, I think in the final year. And we keep a sketchbook and do whatever we want in the sketchbook. So I was doing little doodles about finding out I was autistic, and then doing a few little drawings and with words about memories of things that had happened in my childhood and stuff. And as these little doodles and anecdotes came together, I thought, ooh, this could actually make a book about growing up autistic and not knowing I was autistic. So I decided to work towards making a book about that for a middle grade audience as my final degree show piece. And it started off a bit more picture booky, and then I made a dummy with a sort of sample of pages in it, and that was presented at my degree show. And and then lots of publishers and agents and people came to the show. And actually a few days before the show, there was a booklet that was given out of all of our work to publishers and agents. And I had an email from Emily at United Agents inviting me in for a chat. So I ended up basically securing an agent like one day before my degree show.
Amazing.
Which was quite exciting. And and then after the degree show, I had maybe about 7 publishers or something who got in touch. And and then I had meetings with quite a few of them, and I created a sample submission based on what I did for my degree show of what I'd like a different sort of normal to be, with examples of illustrations and text, and an accompanying sort of thing about me and where it would sit in the marketplace. And my agent sent that round, and there was an auction, and we ended up going with Puffin Books, who are amazing and really got my vision for the book. And it was, I started writing after giving in the sample. I ended up writing most of the book in a Word document, and then I did notes about what I wanted the illustrations to be, and then I'd put maybe a few little examples of illustrations in throughout. And then after all the text was signed off, then I moved on to the illustrations.
Okay.
And ideally, we would have done roughs for everything first, but we were quite short on time, so I went straight to final artwork. And
Oh, wow.
I was basically doing like about 5 or 6 spreads every night after my other job, and for every day for I can't remember how long it was, but I suppose it wasn't that long.
Wow.
And the whole process was quite quick. And because I realized the other day, I had an app that says, this is what you were doing this time last year. And
Okay.
it said I'd signed my contract with Puffin Books. And then I was thinking, my book's in the shops now. And I signed the contract a year ago. How has this happened so quickly?
That is so quick to not only write and draw it.
Yeah. But yeah, Puffin have been amazing to work with. And made the process really fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I've read the book because you sent me a copy, which was super kind of you. And I loved it. And I love how visual it is, because a lot of books are not very visual. They're very text heavy, but this was like a beautiful balance of like not a ridiculous amount of words, but loads of images at the same time, which was lovely.
Oh, thanks. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Yeah, I wanted it to be as accessible to as many people as possible, because I know like neurodivergent brains can sometimes have a short attention span, or like I've had quite a few messages from parents of dyslexic children who have said, like, this is the first book my child's managed to read for over a year. And people with ADHD as well. And I think I'm really pleased that the way it's laid out has sort of achieved what I wanted it to in its accessibility, because I know that I would have found it a lot easier to consume a book that's sporadic bits of, because sometimes if you've got facts and things like complicated words and sentences, because as I said in the book, when adults talk about autism, they use complicated sounding sentences and words and stuff, and then you've got these words like neurodivergent and neurotypical and illustrator, and for a young child it's quite a lot to take in if you haven't heard all this stuff before. So I wanted the book to be as fun to learn about these things, and to be interspersed with funny little stories and footnotes and little speech bubbles and things, so that it's not a book of like, it's not like a reference book, even though it's usually found in the reference section of most bookshops. But it is a reference book, but it's also lots of other things.
And you can like dip. I love that you can like dip in and out of it, and it's not like you have to read it like chapter by chapter. Like, it's not that format. And I think you said before that you're like not someone that tells a story from like start to end. I think I've like I think I watched one of the like CBBC book club things that you did, and you said, you're very much someone that kind of goes in and around things, and I think that's really interesting, and how you've written the book as well. I think that's why it's almost like more readable in a way, because you can dip in and out whenever you like. There's no like commitment to like, oh, I've got to finish like this chapter. You can start and finish reading whenever you like, which I think is really great.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I hoped it would because I kind of wrote it in the style of how I talk. But lucky I was able to go back and edit it, otherwise it would have been a lot longer. Actually, it was supposed to be a lot shorter than it is now. It was basically supposed to be about half the size of what it is.
Really?
But I kept rambling, and some of the rambling came out, but we realized we needed to keep most of it, because it felt like it was needed. in the book.
At least it's like better to have too much than too little, because you can kind of cut down too much. Yeah, I think too much is a good thing.
Yeah.
So how are you finding all the like book like PR stuff? Is it like scary? Like it must be like great, obviously, to hear people giving you like nice feedback, but is it weird to have been on like a master's course and then like straight into being an author?
Well, it feels quite nice and I'm really enjoying it. And I'm just really grateful because it's something I've always wanted to do. I've always wanted to write books and draw and have books that people can read and enjoy. And I wanted to write things that I would have wanted to write and look at when I was a child. And I'm just so grateful that it's happened so quickly and that people are actually liking what it is. The PR stuff, it's been fun, and I think I thought I would find it more scary than I have. Like doing radio interviews and stuff, and the book CBBC book club, and I suppose due to the working from home COVID stuff, it's been easier to do things in my own environment, so I can properly focus and plan and know what I'm going to say and not have distractions apart from the seagulls outside and the neighbours shouting and the cars and these headphones which are creaking, but yeah, it's been really fun. But I've got my first real life author event coming up this weekend, which I'm a bit nervous about because I haven't done a real life thing yet. And that's the
so
Evening Standard Stories Festival panel with Holly Smale and Elle McNichol. And I'm excited, but I'm a bit nervous because I won't be able to have my notes. Well, I might be able to. I suppose I could.
Yeah.
I mean, it's autism.
Yeah.
I could bring it with me and I could make it a thing.
Yeah.
This will be in the past when everyone's listening to this.
It will be.
Everyone, you'll know what the answer is. Well, I will anyway.
I'm actually going to the evening talk on Saturday. I think Holly and Sarah are doing like an evening talk at the Picture House, so I'm going to that. But I'm excited to I'm scared to go in real person, to go and sit in an audience. So I can only imagine that it's scary to be on a stage.
Yeah. But I'm looking forward to it as well. It's been a while since being on a stage. Oh yeah, back to masking actually, because that's something I talked about in my book. Because I realised I really enjoyed drama at school and acting, and I was approached by someone about, I don't know if you heard of the BBC show Dinosaur, which features an autistic lead actress. And I auditioned for it last year, and I got down to quite a late stage, and it was really fun. And I was thinking, like, acting is kind of similar to masking, and but this, I don't know, it feels like I like playing a role like that takes me out of my life for a moment, and you can be totally absorbed in something else and playing this part. And I suppose sometimes masking's like that, but it's different because it's draining.
Yeah.
It's different. I'm not explaining it very well.
No, I think you are.
I think I wrote something better in my book about it.
If in doubt, we'll refer to your book, don't worry.
Yeah.
And I'm now going to ask you a very straightforward question, which is, what are your special interests other than autism? Like, I'd love to know. Like, feel free to info dump.
My special interests. Well, I've got a whole section in my book about special interests. Let's refer to that. How can I not remember what my special interests? The thing is, they change all the time.
Yeah, I've put you on the spot as well.
At the moment, I've been quite obsessed. Well, I've always been really obsessed with crystals and healing things. And sometimes I forget about them for a while. But then the other day I went to Glastonbury and everything was a magical, spiritual healing place with crystals everywhere. And then I got into researching crystals and their meanings and uses again. And yeah, and on my desk at work, I used to have lots of crystals, and I used to always wash them and then put them in the window, and then and sometimes, like, if people would need a crystal for a certain use, I say, "Why don't you hold this crystal, and that might help you."
Like a library of crystals. What a great idea!
Yeah, I also used to have a selection of bark flower remedies on my desk that were for when people had problems. There was one for focus, and there was one for calm, and then there was different things. And people used to come to my desk saying, "Please, can I have some of this today?"
You're like a little pharmacy.
Oh yeah, and I used to also send Reiki to people in my office. I remember.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I remember once when my colleague had a stomach ache. So I was like, right, let's take a break. And we went into the meeting room, and then I Reiki'd his stomach for a few minutes, and then he felt better, and then went back to work.
Excellent. I love that.
Yeah. Reiki is one of my special interests. But I know it can be, well, wait, what else? I'm looking in my book.
In your book, you said about birth charts and horoscopes.
Oh yeah,
is that another
Yeah, so I'm very into working out people's birth charts. But you can. I used to do it with a website, but now there's obviously the apps you can do it on. So I'm quite obsessed with checking the apps every day to see what the moon and the planets are doing and how it relates to the people in my life. Yeah, and also, yes, that's one thing, because getting to know friends better and understanding them, I found working out birth charts to be a really helpful thing to know why people are the way they are, and how I can best relate to them and communicate with them. Because there's the planet Mercury is the planet of communication, and if someone's Mercury is in I don't know an example, but but I can sort of think, oh, that's how they communicate, and compared with how I communicate, because my Mercury is in Aries, so I do this and they do that, and yeah, my nan got me into all of this because she had a massive collection of big encyclopedic astrology books, one for every star sign, and she used to talk about, well, if this friend is like this, then you probably get on with them because of this. And I found it all very interesting, and I still do. And I know lots of people don't, and it's not for everybody, but it helps me feel grounded in a way, even though it's about the stars.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. And your nan sounds like a legend. She sounded like such an interesting character.
Yeah, she was quite a character. I wonder if I got fun. Yeah, she used to, if she was feeling a bit anxious, she would just stop and sit down in the middle of the shopping centre and meditate.
Excellent.
She had no sort of inhibitions, and she didn't care what anyone thought of her, and she would just do what made her happy. And yeah, I admired that.
Yeah, I think we should all be a bit more like that.
Oh yes.
You have some brilliant stories, and especially during your book as well. It's so I love how much you've included your family and your friends in it, because it just shows how important they are to you, but also how much they've influenced you as well. And it's really nice to I don't know, get a sense of where you come from. I think that's really important.
Ah, thank you. I'm glad you liked it.
I didn't ask you about like if you have like a go-to like sensory item, or if you're like someone that uses fidgets and stuff.
yeah.
I don't know if you are or not.
I really like soft things. Like, I wrote in my book about how much I like soft things, and like as I'm here now talking, I'm smoothing the very soft rug that's on the floor of my pink tent, and once I bought a jumper, a sweatshirt that was, the sleeves inside were so soft that it made me cry, because I didn't realize I could get a texture that was so soft, and that was only a couple of years ago. I didn't discover comfortable clothes until that recently, because I used to try and be all like, I don't know, what I thought fashion was, and copying people, as is classic with with an autistic person, trying to mirror their friends, changing the fashion according to who I was hanging out with as a teenager. But the question was, oh yes, well actually, I also wrote in my book about how I like soft blankets, and one day I'll invest in a weighted blanket. Well, Puffin very kindly bought me a really nice weighted blanket to say well done for my book.
Stop it. That is the best gift ever from a publisher.
And Tom, my editor, carried it all the way to Brighton as well, and it was very heavy.
Oh my God, they're so heavy. Oh,
I
bless. That's amazing. What? Oh, that is the pinnacle in gifts.
I know.
And how are you finding it? Do you like it?
Yes, thanks. It's after I met them for lunch, I went home and put the blanket on my bed and just laid under it for hours. I thought, yes, this is good.
Excellent.
And I'll enjoy it even more in the winter.
Oh yeah, definitely. I'm also a huge fan of weighted blankets, so I get you. It's ideal for bedtime. It's ideal for when you just need the weight on you and you can just sit under it.
Soft socks
so cool.
as well. And I like a few days ago, I bought a sort of chewy necklace thing. I thought, let's try that, see what that's like. But it feels a bit large to be chewing. And I thought, isn't it weird? Like, I don't know, having saliva floating all over your clothes when you're walking around. I don't know.
When you put it like that.
Especially in COVID times.
Yes.
So might avoid that.
At least you gave it a go. Because sometimes, like, I feel with a lot of, like, fidgets and sensory stuff, you almost have to try it and then be like, oh no, I hate it.
Yeah. I think soft things is my go-to.
That sounds good.
There's lots of textures I don't like. Like, the feel of a kitchen roll against my hands is too much. And, like, the bristles of a broom go across the floor. And there's lots of things that make me shudder. Sound is my worst. Like, the combination of different sensory things is what causes the most sensory overload. But also, when I hear a neighbour walking on the ceiling above me, I can feel it in my veins, and it makes my veins hurt. And I can feel like things absorbing into my skin and like through my crown chakra and my third eye. I'm going to sound very weird now, but yes, I can feel my third eye open, and I haven't seen many things yet, but I'm working on it.
There you
look
go.
out for that in book number 29. When I've managed to open my third eye enough.
So actually, where can people buy your book? Because that's what we want people to do.
Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah.
Well, my book is available in most bookshops. Well, actually, maybe it's not. there's actually I went into someone, it wasn't there, and then I said, hey, what about my book? I keep really bothering the booksellers, mainly just in my local area because I don't want to get on a train. But I'm sure W.H. Smith and Brighton are probably sick of the sight of me.
Where is my book?
Well, I think there's been some stocking issues generally in the book world at the moment, and not all books are ending up being where they should be.
Okay.
But to answer the question, my book is available in lots of places such as Amazon, Blackwell's, Foyles, Hive, Waterstones, W.H. Smith, and also local bookshops. Obviously, great to support your local bookshop. And you can find out your local bookshop on bookshop.org. Yeah, and places can also order it in as well.
Amazing.
Yeah.
How exciting. And am I right in thinking that you signed like a 2-book deal? So have you got like another book in the works? Is that?
Yes.
Ooh.
I am currently working on my second book, which is a picture book for younger readers. And it's also an autism-related one.
Okay, exciting. Gosh,
Yeah.
I don't know how you're juggling like your full-time job and like you were saying doing stuff in the evenings as well. Like you are a very organised individual to be doing this.
Luckily my job isn't full-time at the moment.
Okay.
I started off full-time there, but now I'm part-time. So and I arrange my hours across the week according to projects and what I'm doing. So yeah, it's yeah.
Okay, that's good. I'm glad you've like found a balance. I was going to say if you were full-time, I was like, how are you doing this?
Yeah, full-time would be very difficult.
Yay. Awesome. And where can people find you online as well? So what are your social media handles?
My social media handles are at Abigail Balfe, and that's on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter.
What I'll do is I'll put the links in the description. So if anyone's listening and they want to find you, they can click down below. It's been so nice to chat to you.
It's lovely to chat to you. Thank you for inviting me, and thank you for the talking and everything.
No worries. Thank you very much for being up for it.